He gave her everything. She still left him. He thought loving her meant giving her everything. His time, his energy, his full attention, every late-night call, every favor, every moment he could carve out of his life. It went to her. And not because she asked, because he wanted to prove he was different, that he was the guy who would never let her down. He showed up again and again. When she needed help moving, he was there. When she needed someone to vent to, he listened for hours. When she was hurt by someone else, he stepped in like a protector, even though he was never really chosen. He convinced himself that love was about service, that the more he gave, the more she'd see his worth, that eventually all the little things he did, the thoughtful gestures, the quiet sacrifices, the patience, would separate him from the rest. And maybe it did, but not in the way he wanted. Because the more he gave, the less she felt. Not because he wasn't valuable, but because he didn't value himself enough to hold anything back. He gave her everything too soon, too fast, too fully. And there was nothing left to chase. No mystery, no tension, no space for desire to breathe. He didn't realize that in his attempt to be everything, he made himself too easy to overlook. And when she left, he didn't get angry. He just got confused. How could she walk away from someone who gave her everything? But that's the part he missed. She didn't ask for everything. She didn't want to be put on a pedestal. She didn't need to be saved. She needed to feel something. And giving without presence, without strength, without boundaries, that doesn't create connection. It creates weight. He thought love was about proving, but real love doesn't need proof. It needs presence, depth, polarity. It needs a man who knows his value, not one who tries to earn it. He kept telling himself he wasn't enough, that maybe if he had more money, more muscles, more edge, she would have stayed. That maybe if he had been more exciting, more distant, more like the guys she used to complain about, she would have chosen him. But that wasn't the truth. She didn't leave because he lacked something. She left because he gave too much of himself too quickly, and she never had to meet him halfway. Every time she pulled away, he stepped in closer. Every time she got cold, he turned up the warmth. He didn't just fill in the gaps, he erased them completely, smothering her with reassurance before she even had a chance to question how she felt. And that's what killed the attraction. It wasn't that he wasn't good enough. It was that she never had a reason to wonder if he knew he was. He made himself endlessly available, always reachable, always willing to rearrange his world for hers. But when there's no friction, no distance, no pause to miss someone, there's no spark either. She didn't leave because he was a bad guy. She left because she never felt the pull. He was safe, but he wasn't magnetic. He was dependable, but he wasn't desired. And that's a hard truth. Giving too much, too fast, can feel like pressure, not love. Especially when it's unbalanced, especially when it's not being returned. She didn't leave because he was too nice. She left because there was no challenge, no edge, no sense that he'd ever walk away if his needs weren't met. Because when a man pours everything into someone without ever requiring anything back, it doesn't look like strength. It looks like need. And that's what she felt. The quiet weight of his need. Not love, not partnership, but a kind of emotional debt she never asked to carry. He thought giving more would win her over. But what she needed was a man who knew when to stop giving and start receiving. He thought sacrifice made him stronger. That if he kept putting her needs first, it would prove the depth of his love. He skipped meals to help her, delayed his goals to be there, put his own emotional well-being on the shelf just to keep her happy. But here's the truth most men don't realize until it's too late. Sacrifice without boundaries isn't loyalty. It's self-abandonment. Because when you give up who you are, what you need, and how you feel, just to keep someone else comfortable, you're not loving them. You're slowly erasing yourself. He thought the more he gave, the more she'd appreciate him. But appreciation doesn't grow from unbalanced effort. It grows from mutual respect. And no one respects someone who constantly disrespects themselves for the sake of being liked. Every time he said yes when he wanted to say no. Every time he stayed silent just to avoid conflict. Every time he let his own standards slide just to make sure she stayed. He was teaching her something. He was teaching her that his time wasn't valuable, that his emotions were negotiable, that she could take without giving, and he'd still stay. That's not love. That's fear dressed up as devotion, and it always backfires. Because a man who sacrifices without standards doesn't look strong, he looks desperate. And desperation never inspires love. It inspires distance. She didn't walk away because he wasn't capable of love. She walked away because his version of love asked for nothing, and love that asks for nothing is easy to leave behind. There's nothing noble about being everything for someone who won't be anything for you. There's nothing admirable about pouring yourself out when the cup is never filled in return. Real love has limits. Real confidence has boundaries. And real connection only happens when both people show up, not just one. He thought his sacrifice would win her over. But all it did was show her that his love came without a spine. And that's not attractive. That's exhausting. The more he chased, the less she felt. Not because he wasn't a good man, but because there was no space left for her to feel anything at all. No tension, no anticipation, no wondering. He was always there, texting first, calling back instantly, rearranging his schedule just to fit into hers. He gave her everything she could have ever needed, except one thing: the space to want him. Desire doesn't grow when someone's always within reach. It grows in the pauses, in the uncertainty, in the moments where you're not sure what they'll do next. But with him, there was no unknown. She didn't have to wonder how he felt. He made it obvious every second. He chased her so hard that he made the relationship feel one-sided, even if she never said it out loud. And eventually, she stopped feeling anything at all. That's the part that hurt the most. Not that she left, but that she seemed to feel nothing when she did. Like everything he gave never really mattered. But here's what he missed. She never had a chance to give. Never had a reason to reach. Never had to work for his affection because he handed it out like it was free. And when something costs nothing, people treat it like it's worth the same. He thought chasing her proved his value. But in the end, all it did was prove he didn't believe she should chase him too. And that's why she didn't. Confidence doesn't beg. It doesn't plead. It doesn't try to convince someone to feel something they don't. Confidence chooses. It observes. It sets the tone. and it walks away when that tone isn't matched. But he didn't know that back then. He thought love was about proving he could care more, proving he'd never leave, proving he was different from the others. And in doing that, he placed her above himself. He made her the prize, and himself the offering. He let her set the pace, the tone, the depth, while he kept giving more just to stay in the running. That's not confidence. That's conditional self-worth. And confidence doesn't work like that. Because a man who truly respects himself doesn't need to give everything to be chosen. He is the offering. His presence, his energy, his values. And the moment someone treats those things like they're disposable, he doesn't try harder. He walks. But he stayed. He hoped. He gave more, thinking it would tip the scale. It never did. And that's the turning point most men reach. When you finally get tired of proving yourself. When you realize that your peace is more important than being picked. That love, real love, isn't something you perform for. It's something you both create. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't chase. It's quiet, still, clear. And when you carry it, people feel it. Without you saying a word, she left because he didn't carry it. Because deep down, she didn't feel that she had to earn him. Because he never made her choose, he just made himself available. But that version of him, he's gone now. He doesn't beg for love. He doesn't overextend for attention. And he definitely doesn't break his own boundaries just to keep someone close. Because now he knows. Love isn't something you chase. It's something you attract. When you finally become the kind of man who knows his worth, with or without her.